Welcome to the Synapse Podcast. I'm Lauren Prager with Synapse, and it is my pleasure to welcome two entrepreneurs, really serial founders that I've gotten a chance to know for a long time as they've been building and growing their first company, and now their second together. Welcome to the podcast, Jordan Walker and Hunter McKinley. Great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Lauren.
So I'm excited to delve into this conversation because the innovation that you focus on is really about human connectivity and communication. And I think that's such an important topic that we can focus on because that's really the essence of how we build as innovators. Innovation is a team sport. There's really no such thing as a solopreneur. And the two of you have built tools that have allowed people to really harness communication in a more effective and efficient way, leveraging technology in a way that kind of gets it out of the way as opposed to making it the center. So I'd love for one of you to jump in and kind of share what you're focusing on related to communication and connectivity, and what inspired you to build this technology for those means to the end.
Hunter, I think that one's all you, man.
Yeah, well, I want to just start by saying, like, we actually started Backtrack in YAC about 5 years ago. So YAC was around a really long time. And when we were trying to raise money, it's so funny you bring up that we built human technology. And it's so funny that we were actually getting knocked in the beginning because we were too on the what they call the mushy gushy side. So the way that we were building YAC, which originally stood for yelling across cubicles, and that was meant to be a way to talk to people in the office or outside of the office, all through voice. And we believe very early on that the way that you get business done and the way that you build connections shouldn't be over text messages. For example, Lauren, you probably don't talk to your mom only exclusively over text messages and emails. You probably call her, maybe visit her and whatnot. So that's where we came from, is building the human side. And what's so funny is that fast forward to today with Backtrack, is we were actually in Menlo Park trying to raise money for YAC, trying to get the word out and say, hey, look, connection is all through voice. And we got shut down, and we got out of that meeting. We got shut down by this awesome VC. In fact, that they tried to invest in us later on, which is so ironic. And Jordan said, man, I really wish we recorded that. And I was like, that would be a really great product. So I wish we could go backwards and record. And that's where we landed with Backtrack. And we built that on the plane ride home from San Francisco back to Orlando. So it's been an amazing journey. So I just want to point out that you use the word human and stuff. We used to get punished for that. And now it's like the world kind of came to us and said, yes, actually, especially in a post-pandemic world, humans first technology it's here to stay.
Yeah, that is definitely ironic, to see how that kind of comes full circle. You guys were obviously ahead of your time.
We try to skate where the puck is going right this second. It seems like the world is probably not going to be in the office full time anymore. You see a lot of that in the tech world, and you see the commercial real estate world is on fire right now. So it seems like the future of work is going to be in office and remote. And so any solution that we build going forward is going to have to do both.
Jordan, you want to share a little bit more about kind of the inspiration for YAC? I love that yelling across cubicles, because isn't that what it used to be? I mean, it was kind of chatter over the proverbial water cooler, and now there's another way to approach people. So how is this making communication more effective and easier?
Yeah, for sure. So yes, originally V1 of YAC stood for yelling across cubicles, and we realized that was just way too long. So we condensed it down to YAC. And then ironically, we also happened to see a podcast with the old CEO of Slack, Stuart Butterfield. He was giving some sort of speech, and he goes, yeah, people just yakking around the office. And we went, oh my gosh, okay, Brandon, it's staying, it's going to stick. So that's kind of how we landed on that front. But as far as the connection that YAC enables, and just the tools in general that we've built enable, is like you mentioned kind of at the top of this call or this podcast, is that it allows for human connection to really kind of unfold and take place. I remember V1 of YAC, even before we launched it, when we were just building it, we had team members, we had never heard their voice before because we were on such opposite sides of the world. It was impossible to jump on the phone at the same time. And so when YAC first came to light and we were using it internally, there were teammates, 9, 10, 11 hours ahead or whatever, that we heard their voice for the first time. And that totally changed our working dynamic because, wow, it's no longer just, someone, an avatar typing into Slack or in an email. It's now a real voice, a real human behind, these messages and what's being said and the work being done. And so that was insanely cool. And then just generally, when we saw the whole world go remote and everybody started to crave that and need that at one time, like Hunter mentioned, we happened to be skating to where the puck was going to be, and it was really, really good time. And then even now with Backtrack, like Hunter was saying, in a post-pandemic world, the amount of connection that it's enabled and the stories that we've heard so far, I mean, truly, truly just life-changing stuff. And I don't say that in a dramatic sense. People actually tell us this is quite life-changing for them. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride so far, but that's kind of where it started and, where we're going to continue to go with it.
So what is Backtrack enabling people to do when let's backtrack in the story and kind of understand that component of it? Because there's kind of this asynchronous communication that we need to do with colleagues. And yes, sometimes it would even be helpful with my mom, to be able to have some async communication and share what we're working on or share questions that we have and create that human connection, because so much gets lost when it's just text. There's only so much an emoji can do to convey what you mean behind a comment. So having a voice behind it really makes a difference. So now you've evolved into this new opportunity, new connection point where people are talking live in real time, and they're able to capture that but retrospectively. So how does that even work?
Yeah. I just want to point out, over 90 people forget 90% of information within a week. So what we found in the last
a week, I feel like I forget 90% of information within an hour. So that's really
okay. On a science level, you forget 50% of information within an hour. So you're not alone. And then if
okay, good. I'm glad. That makes it feel a lot better.
Yeah, most of America, what you probably don't know is there's over 55 million meetings that happen a day in America, okay? Most people that are in meetings, they do back-to-back meetings. So you compound 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. By the end of the day, you basically forgot everything, right? And so with Backtrack, the way that it works is it's always on standby in the background, always overwriting itself, right? So it's not taking up too much room. And at any point you can say, I want to go back and I want to grab the last 5 minutes. What did Lauren just say? She just said something amazing. Well, we can't tell you how many times that people have told us that it's actually saved their life. Sometimes it actually saves literal lives. We can go over that in a minute. But these moments happen all day long. What's really, really fun, the most exciting stories to us are the ones where they download it for work, because there's always unexpected moments where a boss or somebody says, hey, can you grab this? And they forget everything. But they bring it to their personal lives. They bring it to the parent-teacher conferences, or we've heard of people saying, hey, like my grandma had a nurse in and she has Alzheimer's. She can't remember what medications she took. So the applications in life are always there. It's just the problem is that we can't capture it, because every device that we have on this earth all require you to hit the record button to then start capturing. I did get, and I'll wrap up with this, one of the people that was first at growth at Snapchat, they always had this dream of having some sort of glasses. In retrospect, we know that the spectacles was probably going this way, to have some sort of device that was on your face at all times that was always recording and deleting itself, much like Backtrack. So that way, if you do say something amazing, you could capture it. Most conversations, most amazing things that happen in our lives are never recorded. And that's a shame. And that's what we're here to solve with Backtrack.
Yeah. And to think about the power of not just recording it, I see as we're in virtual meetings, people's AI pops in and captures whatever the transcript is, but then to actually have the voice, the inflection, the emotion, and just that memory, sometimes it's very deeply emotional. That's really incredible. And game changing on a lot of levels, not just in business, like you were saying. I could see a lot of applications, but also a lot of questions, right? So privacy is obviously among them. All of a sudden, I guess everybody's being recorded all of the time right now. Think about your phone sitting on your desk right in front of you. If you say the right name, all of a sudden, everything you say is going to be recorded, or even with all of these devices that we have automated in our homes and our offices. So how do you help people kind of understand or even overcome some of the privacy concerns and some of the realities of that kind of almost surveillance culture that this is creating? It's one thing if you're recording, but what about the other person?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can hop in here. So first things first is we always say like, okay, get a good understanding of like your local laws, whatever pertains to you, right? This is not legal advice. But generally speaking, inside of Backtrack, we do have the option for people to turn on a pop-up that says, hey, this call is going to be recorded, just like you would on Zoom or any of the other services that everybody knows and loves today. So that's one aspect of it. But then two is also, like I mentioned, just kind of understand what situations where you might need to disclose that you're recording or not recording. So for example, Hunter was talking about some of the personal use cases that people have with Backtrack. We have a dad who's actually used it to record his daughter's first words. And in that case, right, he doesn't need to, go and get permission to have the thing that says this is being recorded to record his daughter's first words. So in that case, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But inside the app, like I mentioned, we do have the option for, people to turn on that, hey, this thing is being recorded if they so want to. But generally speaking, to kind of answer your question on a more broad level, is that, in today's day and age, there's so many devices and things happening where, you don't necessarily know what's going on with your data. But here at Backtrack, it's a promise to our users that everything is going to be recorded locally. Nothing's being streamed to the internet. Nobody's watching your stuff or anything like that. It's all private and local to you. I would take that very, very seriously, especially in a 2024 world.
Yeah.
I want to take that one step further, if you don't mind, Lauren.
Not at all.
Yeah. So from a products perspective, if you look at everyone on the market right now, you mentioned a couple of people, like those bots that come in, and there's a couple other ones. The problem with all of them, like Jordan was talking about, is they actually record straight to the internet. So you don't even have an option of having it local. And so one of the things that we did, like for our phone app and our Mac app, they're completely on device at all times. Every file, every single thing that's on it is all completely local until you say, hey, I want to send it to somebody. Obviously, you can't send it to somebody without it being shared. So we make sure that on every level, everything is completely local and stored personally. In addition, one really awesome feature that we've built in from the very, very beginning, again, this product's been around for a little while and we've been just niching down. From the very beginning, if you do absolutely nothing, these files will just keep deleting themselves. So for example, some products, I won't mention any names, but some products, if you leave it open for a year and you've just been using your product, your device for a year, it'll just keep recording everything and transcribing it and storing it. And that's really scary. So we said, okay, we're not going to do that. We intentionally said, if you use Backtrack for a year, it's been deleting the whole time. You can't even recover any of those files, any of those transcripts, anything. So we take it very seriously. You might not know this, but like one of the first startups that we worked at was a security company, so a cybersecurity company. So we had all this kind of like background going into it, knowing that this conversation is going to happen, because we don't want to be stuck in like Alexa, where they were listening to people doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing behind people's backs, and they got a lot of trouble for that. So we try our best to, even on the product level, not even let that kind of thing happen.
That's helpful. And actually a good segue, because one of the interesting parts of the story I think is important uncover really is about the connection that you have as founders and creators. And we love to be able to share that story. It's a Florida story. And, it's one that really, I think, shows how when we come together, we can create and build something great. So, tell us a little bit about how you guys connected, some of the origins of your journeys together and your personal experiences that has enabled you kind of to build as entrepreneurs.
Oh man, you want to talk about it or you want me to? The starting story is hilarious.
Go for it.
All right, so I'll give you the story of how Hunter and I met, and then we can get into the formation of the company. So Hunter and I have been friends for 10 years now. We met in 2013 on the first day of college. And the first day of classes at UNF also happened to coincide with my birthday that year. And there was one other, we won't name him on the podcast, but he's going to have a big laugh when he hears this. There's one other person from my high school that I knew going to UNF as well. And it just so happened that he, at the time, was neighbors with Hunter. And so as the story goes, I invited him to come hang out with me for my birthday, and he so happened to invite Hunter. But what he told Hunter was, hey man, there's this guy I'm going to see. It's his birthday. He's kind of weird. You might not like him, but just come hang out. And that's how it started. So it was hilarious. And then we all meet up. Hunter shows up. And I think both of us were like, wow, this guy is super cool. Like we were both into sneakers, music, technology, design, entrepreneurship. I mean, everything.
I guess I'm weird too. I mean, I guess
I
that's
mean,
what
birds of a feather.
So I guess that made us the two peas in the pod, right?
Yep.
But we just instantly became really close friends, and we just kept talking, as the semesters went on, and about what we want to do, our dreams, our goals, things we want to build, and things like that. And then before you know it, we became roommates, and I think that's where things just really started to take off. Started working on a design agency together, started hacking away on whatever we could. Graduated, continued to keep working. That's when we moved to Orlando, and then that's where YAC started from there. But in the YAC Backtrack journey. But started in college. In the context of being introduced was, hey, you might find this person weird. So,
I got to show you this one. I don't know if it's going to come out on camera because I have the thing up, but I also met my wife that day. So Jordan, my wife, and I have been friends for 10 years now. So it's so funny. Jordan helped me. You can kind of see it with the glare here, but Jordan, there's mini Jordan and I trying to figure it out. I had a little clothing company we launched, and he was instantly helpful, especially because I didn't have a car and Jordan had a truck. So we were driving from like skate shop to skate shop and trying to get them to sell this t-shirts. It was a whole thing. So,
all right. So you guys are entrepreneurs at heart and creators, and, fate brought you together, and that's a lot of what happens, really, serendipity. And so you just, I love that you met your wife and your business partner on the same day. That's amazing. And so UNF based in Jacksonville, then you guys moved to Orlando, and you've been part of the Florida ecosystem, obviously, and there are a lot of resources that have been part of your journey. And I think it's important for people listening, trying to understand, how do you build a company here in Florida? How do you grow and evolve? What resources are here to help? How do you do this? Share some of those organizations that were really impactful, that would be valuable for other entrepreneurs to be familiar with.
Yeah, there's a couple people we got to give a lot of love to. First of which, I think that who really helped Hunter and I kind of get going and gave us quite literally a seat at the table is the team over at PS27, specifically Jim Stallings, Christine, and Kristen. Incredible group of people. And Jim, when we were back in college, took us under his wing, and he didn't have to. We were just two 17-year-old kids who didn't know what they were doing, trying to make something happen. And he really brought us along for the ride and kind of opened both of our eyes to just like what else is out there in the world. So big shout out to him. And even today we stay in contact with them, and huge help. So big shout out to.
You're on the board now. So it really comes full circle. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really, really cool. So big shout out to PS27, largely impactful in Hunter and I's lives. When we were in Orlando, the team over at Starter Studio, very helpful to us. That's where we worked out of. Made a ton of introductions for us. And I think that's where we really got initially plugged in. And Lauren, I can't remember, maybe that's how we got initially connected, now that I'm thinking about it, all those years ago. But that whole crew, insanely helpful as well. And then, some of the last people that we got to give a lot of love to too is the Florida Funders team. They're like to disclose that they are investors in us, but Ryan, Tom, Zach, that whole Maria, the whole gang, incredibly helpful for us, especially over the last couple of years or so, just as the business has evolved and a lot of things have changed. They've been crazy helpful, and I remember that first meeting we had with them. So big shout out to those three people. If I'm forgetting anybody, feel free to add. But
those are the main ones, man. They, especially the PS27. Lauren, what might not be obvious and what Jordan just said is that, like, when we were in college, like Jordan said, we met when we were 17, and in college, Florida isn't known for all the amount of investors that it has. Like, it's not like Sand Hill Road, right, or Sand Crane Road, whatever it's called in Silicon Valley, where you throw a rock and you hit 10 VCs at a blue bottle. So for us, like, there's only a handful of ones in Jacksonville, and for one of them to pick us up so early and take us under his wing and introduce us to other entrepreneurs, it made all the difference, especially when we were trying to go out and raise for the first time, because Florida at the time when we were raising didn't really have a reputation for, getting a lot of investment or really anything like what we were doing. A lot of that's changed since COVID, but man, it was amazing what he's been able to do for us at such a young age.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really supportive ecosystem, and good on you guys for putting yourselves out there and taking advantage of it, and staying here and building. Because what I also know about your story is that you were able to leverage that support and that confidence, and reach out to some pretty incredible partners who now are part of the YAC and Backtrack world. So I think that we call it chutzpah in my community, in my culture, but having that willingness to put yourself out there is really key. So how did that story, how did you build into that? Tell us that story about how you kind of reached out beyond the community here, but based on that foundation of support and confidence to bring in other voices that have helped your business grow.
Yeah, there's a good saying that's like, luck is when opportunity and preparedness come together. We've been preparing for this. So I'm going to give you the TikTok version, which is basically Jordan and I, we had a business partner as well. We had been building apps for years before YAC. So I just want to back up and say, yes, we raised $10 million with YAC. Yes, it basically evolved into Backtrack, but we had been building for a very long time. There's the saying that's like overnight success story, 10 years in the making kind of thing. So
Exactly.
Jordan and I had been building apps. We had been putting it up on a whiteboard in our college dorm for years. So this is just the precursor to YAC. So when YAC came about, we launched a product hunt. Now, product hunt is basically an online, if you think of Reddit, it's like Reddit for products. So if you're in technology, you know what product hunt is, and you've launched. Most people have launched there, and so for us, we were just launching product after product. So we had a couple wins under our belt, but really the whole point of us bringing YAC to the market, it was just yet another product in the series of other products. We had one that was acquired by another company, like it was like a paycheck type of thing. We had one that we launched that did absolutely nothing. We had another one that launched and Adobe gave us funding to work on it. And so YAC was just yet another one to help promote the agency itself, because we were just building apps because that's just what we do and that's what we love. That's what we do in our spare time. But it's crazy that YAC was the only one at Product Hunt that we launched that day. It was part of their first online contest, their first online hackathon. We were the only ones that entered into the remote category. And we won because we were the only ones that actually built anything. Everybody else just built a landing page. So we got really, really lucky, but we had a team in place that could build really fast. And so to fast forward just a little bit, 2 months later, we were at CES, which just happened now. So 5 years ago, we're at CES. We're sitting around. If you've ever been to CES or Vegas, you know this, what I'm about to say never happens. Jordan, my partner, and I were all in a room talking about Jesus of all things. Sober in Las Vegas. Like these things all three of these things never happen in the same sentence, but they did. Well, we had some random person that saw us at the contest reach out to another stranger that he doesn't know called Adam Draper and said, you guys should all talk. So we had a stranger reach out to another stranger that reached out to us and said, hey, we should talk within 5 minutes. We're on a call. And he said, hey, I want to give you guys, I think it was like $25,000, $50,000. And as soon as that call hung up, we thought we hit the freaking lottery. We start jumping up and down. Someone wants to give us money. And like, that was the second investor we'd ever talked to. We didn't have a website. We didn't have anything ready to go. All we do was just, publish to some contest and happened to win because no one else actually tried. So like I said, it was a lot of preparedness in the background to get there. We got very lucky. Not a lot of people do that. So when you say like, well, how do you start reaching out outside of your network? In this case, the network came to us, which we got incredibly, incredibly lucky. And that's what kickstarted everything.
Yeah, but showing up matters, and sometimes these opportunities present themselves to come together for a conference or an event or whatever it is, and you need to take your seat at the table and really show up and engage. So it's not just that it happens to you, you make it happen. Similarly, I know that there have been some significant investors and partners who've been working with you also. How did those relationships, and thinking of Slack, in particular, come to play?
Yeah, so we've been really fortunate that we've brought in some really awesome investors to partner with. And it's sort of crazy how some of them came together. Believe it or not, we raised a fair amount of money off of the back of Twitter DMs, which sounds wild, but Hunter and I have a whole strategy around Twitter DMs and how to use it to talk to investors, get sales, build a wait list, and things like that. So initially, actually, for a good amount of our seed round, actually came off the back of just us sending out some Twitter DMs. shout out to Wiz from Space Cadet Ventures. Him and I got talking over Twitter DMs. I think I messaged him about his podcast. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then we got talking back and forth. And then next thing you know, he took interest in our product and ended up investing. And then likewise with some of the other awesome investors that we have, Anthony Pompliano, huge kind of in the media. Big shout out to him. And then same thing with Arwen Hamilton. She's really fantastic. And we got connected over Twitter as well. So to go back to your question too about taking the time to take a risk and shoot your shot. I mean, for these Twitter DMs, that's kind of what we did. And in general, for our company, that's kind of our thesis. It's like, well, the worst they can do is either say no or not respond, and that puts us no better or worse than where we already are. So you might as well try. So that was kind of our thinking with some of those people. But as for Slack specifically, is actually a really crazy story. Our partner, he ended up having a kid and kind of moved on. But he got connected with someone random on LinkedIn, and they're like, hey, we want to introduce you to Slack. We all thought it was really sketchy and weird because, like, why would a random person on LinkedIn make an introduction to the Slack investment team? And we thought it was very strange, but nonetheless, we all said yes. Turns out this guy actually made the introduction happen. We all had conversations back and forth over YAC itself, which was really cool at the time. Didn't even hop on a call, just did over YAC. And transparently, when Slack says they want to give you $500,000, even though if you're not raising, you say yes to that. And we said yes. So that's kind of what, led one thing to another.
So yes, like you said, Hunter, luck, but also being prepared and being willing to show up and put yourself out there. It sounds like those are the common themes that have helped to drive you guys through the last 10 years and building these multiple products. I also love to hear that, you put a lot out there. I think sometimes we think, you're all in on one thing, and you guys took a different approach. It's interesting to see what had traction, but being willing to be creative and try different approaches. Also, I think, you're uniquely positioned to do that. And that's really, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, important here as well. Sometimes, 3 ideas won't work, and you'll find the 2 that do. And that's where the market tells you to go. And so you dig deep on those. Those are really valuable, I think, takeaway lessons from this conversation that apply whether you're a startup founder or really building in any other space. You've got to be willing to try and fail.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I mean, I think that's something that Hunter and I have definitely learned and hold near and dear to our heart, is just put as many shots on goal as you can, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean,
right. What did Michael Scott say? You miss 100% of the shots that you never take.
That's right.
Right? Just kidding. I know that was Wayne Gretzky. So guys, I always love to end the podcast with a couple of questions that help us connect with you and your innovative spirit. And I hope that this conversation has already kind of gotten us there, but I still am going to ask these few questions. And that is to really focus on innovation. How do you define innovation?
For me, my immediate answer, as I have this book at me at all times, it's kind of cliche, 0 to 1, or maybe the Grant 10X rule kind of thing. But to me, I love the idea of innovation as just being something where the classic example that I think is just amazing is something like an Elon Musk taking Tesla and just looking at everything that's wrong with a gasoline car, fixing every single thing, and then coming out with a new product that's 10X better than anybody's ever seen. A lot of products out there are innovative, but they're only like maybe 10% better. So when we're looking at things like Backtrack or YAC, like we're trying to think like, how can we make a meeting 10 times better than what it is right now? Well, it's not really a meeting at all. You just don't meet. It's all completely async. How can you make a trade show booth 10X better? It's like, well, you get the actual audio recording rather than just like the back of the business card, literally back of the business card scribbles. So that's the kind of thing that I look for. I'm curious to hear what Jordan has to say.
Yeah, I think for me, it's when a group of people are so bold and kind of audacious enough to take on a problem or look at a problem and go, you know what, I think we can do a 10 times better job than that current existing thing. And they go and improve upon it themselves. I think that's what I think of as innovation. Because, like I do think of like the Elon Musk or the Jeff Bezos or the Zucks of the world. But I also think about, when we were like 17, sure, we weren't building like world-changing products at the time, but, we said, hey, we think we can do X, Y, and Z better than somebody else. And I think, in our own way, that was sort of innovating. And that's how I think about it.
Awesome. Who's an innovator who inspires you? Could be somebody dead or alive.
I think we're going to say the same people, but for me, it's all Steve Jobs. It's all Elon Musk. There's nobody that even comes close in my brain. Maybe Da Vinci comes into play. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I know Steve Jobs is like such the cliche answer, but I really think it was him. I mean, the iPhone, just so transformative for the world that we live in today.
All right, so from two guys who love to develop apps. So literally the creator of the ecosystem for apps. So I guess that one was a bit of a gimme, but that's okay. It's honest, and and it does. I mean, it's totally transformed your world and obviously everybody's world. So interesting and totally understandable. Last but definitely not least, Synapse is a community predicated on the notion that we can help people to find what they need and share what they have. And so my question to end the conversation on is always, how can the community help you and how can you help the community?
I would say the top of mind for us right this second is we are pushing Backtrack really hard for anybody that's exhibiting or has a booth, anybody that actually goes to a trade show, period. It's not about sales for us. We have plenty of money in the bank. We have like over 4 or 5 years of runway at this point. We're just trying to find ways that we can at least double your sales. So if you are anybody that wants to make more money and you go to trade shows, please give us just send us an email or just reach out on DMs, because that's our main goal right now. If we can help everybody else make money, maybe we'll find out a way to make money down the line. My email is just hunter@usebacktrack.com. Jordan, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's right. I think that's where we're probably looking for the most help right now. Just be willing to try out what we're doing
and to
here.
give back to the community in that way to help them succeed. I think that's also, we believe that the rising tide will lift all ships if you give more than you receive and give generously without expectation. So it sounds like you guys are in that boat. You've had a really fortunate position that you worked very hard to achieve. And so it's great to hear that you're paying forward that generosity to others who are trying to build their own dreams and their own businesses. So appreciate that very much, you guys. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. Thank you for being part of the Synapse community, part of the reason that innovation lives here.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you
so much.